The Torah is literally the wall that separates. Okay, that's what it is. It's instructions by definition. Okay. Well, once you and I begin to read and to begin to study and begin to understand the Torah, you and I would then are putting up a wall. Okay. The wall is up. And you and I are trying to get people to come on the other side of the wall. That's what you and I are trying to do. Okay. And we've been doing this and doing it. We're trying to get people to see things our way. And it's completely different. It's a wall that separates us from that which is wicked and evil. It's a wall that is literally put around us for protection. It's a wall to help guard us against those things that are coming against us. It's a wall that brings stability to your home. Okay. If we don't follow the Torah, then we're done. It's over. And that's the point that I've been trying to emphasize through my teachings, is to get us to understand this. A lot of people want to stay and remain religious, and they are not going to learn anything. They don't want to re-educate themselves. They don't want to make any investment. They don't want to take another look at their lives, a real hard look at their lives. But if you're going to look at your life, you have to look at every area. Sometimes we look at things and you may walk in somebody's house and everything looks perfect until you go in that closet, or until you go underneath that cabinet, or until you make your way into that refrigerator, and until you look under that bed. Okay. Those are the things that we can't see. Okay. And those are the things that are going to ultimately catch up with us. Okay. So this week's Torah portion is called a Bekukothai. Okay. And let me pull it up for us right quick. Feel free to ask any questions. It's important for us to do so. Leviticus chapter number 26 is what we've been reading out this week. Okay. It's right here. So I'm going to break this word down for us right quick. Okay. It's in, which is the bet, the first letter. And then you have kuk right here. That would be the CH, and then the really be either O, which is coke, and then tie right there. Okay. Which has to do, I'm confusing myself as well. Let me just start over. Maybe I should bring it like this right quick. Be easier, simpler. Okay. So it begins in verse number 3. Okay. And of course, we know that our Hebrew language is the most authentic language that we have to understand the Torah, the scriptures, the Tanakh, the Torah, the prophets, the writings. Okay. All English language is a whole bunch of mess that's been mixed up together to give you 4 different words, or one word, one sound for 4 different things. Okay. If I say bear, you don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know if I'm talking about carrying something. You don't know if I'm talking about an animal. You don't know if I'm talking about being naked. Okay. If I say to, you don't know if I'm saying to go towards somewhere. You don't know if I'm talking about to in terms of a number. You not know if I'm talking about me too, like to accentuate something. You don't know. Okay. We don't have any idea. So this is where we begin. The hang up is with the language. A lot of people don't believe me, but it's the language. This in particular Torah portion begins with this word im. Okay. I am right here. Im. Huge. It's a matter of if. You guys don't know what's wrong with me. It's like, why is he laughing? Because it's always going to be an if. Okay. And we're going to go line by line. Okay. So if, and the big kukothai means in, this is the bet that has to do with the tent. And you go in a tent. That's the reason why they're using the letter bet for that. Okay. It's a dwelling. And then you have this letter right here, which they call that the ket. So you can get Hebrew and you're going to get your word for Bakukothai. That letter, Ket, okay, represents a wall, okay? This letter right here, Kof, it's a sunrise, okay? That's the picture of it in Hebrew, but then it means to gather, how light is gathering, okay? So let's just stop right here. I'm gonna erase all this so I won't confuse you. Let's deal with this root right here. Okay, Ket, and then we got a Kof. Okay, this is the wall. And what does the wall do?
It separates.
It separates. Okay, and then the Kof over here. Okay, I'll write the name so you will know Ket, and this right here is a Kof. Okay, and what this does, it means the gathering, like a gathering of light. Okay. Okay, so the idea behind a Koch, which Yah uses as this word for statutes or decrees, what he's really saying is that which is separated by the wall is gathered together. Okay, so that which is separated is gathered. Okay, so as we know, we've been learning that Yahweh he's Kadosh. And what does Kadosh mean? Hi, Quad.
Kadosh means set apart.
Okay. I see a hand up. Go ahead and ask your question right quick.
I was just sitting here and I was thinking about the Kof and for the sunrise, but it's also could be for the sunset, because when we're supposed to gather at the sunset and at the sun when it goes down. It's like, everybody is in the light or following the Torah, prays in the morning and they pray in the afternoon.
Yes. Do you guys know what people, like those little hats that people wear on their head, is called a kufi or kof, right? Which means that at that moment, that person is separating themselves from other people. That's a distinguishing feature, okay? So what Quad just said is that on two different times, the Creator would say, I need you guys to come, right, to gather. And usually that was a prayer time that would be in the morning and one right when the sun is going to set. So one is a gathering. Our point here is to gather that which is separated, okay? So the way that the Creator is gathering us, because we've been separated from us, because there's been a wall between us and Him, okay? And the wall that we have without it being in front of us is literally our ways and how we've been living our lives. We've been separated from Yah, okay? And so what he uses is he uses his statutes, okay? The thing that brings us together. So we've been learning that there are different times that they called Moedim, okay? Which they were called appointments. So you got to come to your appointments, right? And somebody give me a few appointments. Forgive my writing. I don't know what is wrong with my fingers today.
Passover.
Go ahead. Passover, which is Pesach.
Rosh Kodesh.
The
Rosh
Sabbath.
Chodesh. What else?
The Sabbath.
There you go. Shabbat. What else?
Sukkot.
Sukkot. What else? We got Shavuot.
Shavuot.
We got Shavuot, which is a feast of 7 weeks. Okay. And we also have the Day of Atonement. We have all these different times where Yah says, I want to bring that which is separated together. Okay. So he uses these moedims, these appointments, to get us together. Okay. That's what he does. Right. But not only does he use the moedims to bring us together, and the Shabbat is part of that, but what he's using is his words, his teachings. See, he's using his kukothais. He's asking us if we would walk in his ways. The word for statue is called a coke. And I ain't talking about the coke that you drink, with some brandy. What I'm talking about is a coke, a decree, something that has been inscribed, okay, What do you remember about something being inscribed with the finger of Elohim? What did he inscribe?
The tablets with Moshe.
The tablets with the covenant, the words of the covenant. Okay. And so that was inscribed. Okay. And what he's also letting us know that that which is inscribed, I'm going to hold you responsible. You're going to have responsibility for that which has been inscribed. Okay. And the reason why it's inscribed is because once it's inscribed in stone, you can't go and alter it and you can't change it. You can't, if someone etched something in some stone, it can never be changed. The Christians say that the reason why it was etched in stone is simply because you and I had stony hearts. Well, we already know that that really is not the truth, because Yah has already told us that before you even left Mitzrayim, you had stony hearts. When you were in the wilderness, you had stony hearts. When you left there, you had stony hearts. But not everybody had a stony heart. There's a few individuals that had a willingness that he gives as examples that they didn't have stony hearts. Was they something special? Were they an anomaly or what? What is it? What made them so special? What made Caleb special? What made Pinchas special? To get up and get a spear and stab and kill these people. What made him do that? What made Caleb wholehearted? Was because he got an additional movement of the Spirit of God, or was it simply because he had a made up mind? Listen, we have the things that are inscribed to us that separates us. Okay, how different is Yah's instructions versus everything else everyone else is saying? How different is it? Doesn't it seem like you're the only people at the party? That you're in a place where there's just you and a few people, and there's a wall around you, and the rest of the world is on the outside. We have a responsibility, which means that you and I have a duty to do this. We have a responsibility to show up to the times that Yah told us. We have a responsibility to hold and guard Yahweh's words, because we're those people. We are Israelites. Okay? We're not, listen, we're not Jewish. We're not Christians. We're not Black. We're not African American. We're not niggers. We're none of those things. You and I are Israelites. So that means that if you and I are going to walk with Yah and we're going to be in his presence, he said that if you're going to teleku, okay, this word right here, well, forgive me, I'm getting a little excited. I didn't finish telling you what this means. All this means is my. Okay? More specifically, this right here is my. The statutes is the kukath right there. Okay, the but is in. So if in my teleku, so if he says in, what is he saying? If this is a wall that gathering that which is on the outside to putting that which is on the inside, Yah is only going to be found inside of the wall of the kukothai. You're only going to find Yah in his decrees and statutes. That's the only place you and I are going to have a relationship with him. And he's going to show us that this is the only place. You will never find me in any other writings. You will not find me in the New Testament. Never mentioned. They don't tell you not one mumbling word about my decrees and what it's inscribed for you to do. I don't write things down for you to look at it and just read it. I'm asking you, which is the Tav right here, is you, to lock. That means to walk. And here is the plural of you guys, second person, okay? I'm asking you to walk. Lock. Remember I told Abraham, lek lekah? I'm asking you to walk. How do I know if you're walking? Go ahead, Kwa. Got the hand up?
Yeah, I was just amazed at this because I was thinking, like, what if all of Israel would walk and keep his statutes and keep his Moedim? I mean, as a people within even here, the whole world would change.
Everything would change.
Everything would change.
See, and thank you for that. The whole thing is, how do you know it's to walk? Because you got a staff in your hand, and that's the staff, which is the lamed. Okay, so that's the name of the letter. Okay, and then you have a cough right here. Okay, like cough in your hand, the palm of your hand, which is the palm. So if you got the staff in the palm of your hand, the only time you have that is to walk. You're walking. Okay. The reason why the letter lamed is used right here is because lamed represents this word lamad. Lamad means to teach, and it means to learn. And if you're teaching and you're learning, that means you must be a student. You understand? I'm asking you, individual, part of the collective group, to teleku. I need you to walk. Okay. And walking means, in our case, live by the way that you walk. The way you walk is what you live, because when you're walking, right? Say you're walking, you're living. As long as you're living, you're walking. As long as you're walking, you have to be walking with a message for somebody else other than yourself, because what we learned last week in the previous chapter, around the 40th verse in chapter number 25, you and I are slaves to Yahweh. That's whose slave you and I are. That's whose servant you and I are supposed to be. And as a servant, you and I don't get an opportunity to say what you're going to do. You're going to have to do what you're told. I'm finding this out for myself. No matter how much Yah loves me, I cannot do what I want to do. I'm giving you this to tell you what I want you to do. If I'm telling you to walk, the only reason why you exist is to walk in this. And this is what separates you from everybody else. If you're outside of the wall of the house, I'm asking you to gather to come so you guys can be together. And when you're with everybody else, I want you to gather to me. I don't want you to gather just to be gathering. Ask for you guys to have a teacher, and every time you get on, all he talks about is himself, or what what he's doing and how much money he needs. Forget all that. The only reason why you and I are gathering is so we can go ahead and walk and be next into this. That's all we're here for. Okay. But he says it's an if. If you take Laku and Kuko Thai, my statutes. Okay. Not what somebody else told you in the New Testament. And look what he does. For those of you who have been in the Hebrew class, you know what this means. This right here is and, but they don't tell you what this means. All that is an arrow. If I'm going to have you walk, I want you to walk in this. It's an and. So that's a conjunction. I'm going to put that together. You just knowing about the Moedims and you just knowing about my decrees and what has been assigned to you doesn't do enough. I need you also and to walk in this. And those are called my mitzvothai. They're my commands. Because you have a duty and a responsibility to respond to your master, because you are my servant. I paid for you. I redeemed you. You do not belong to yourself. And if you're going to be with me and we're going to live together, this is what it's going to be. Okay. Not only do I want you to walk, and not only do I want you to walk in my kukothai, which is my statutes, my decrees, that which has been assigned and been ascribed and been appointed. Now I also want you to walk as well as Telaku in the mitzvothai. They're mine. Okay, it's not ours, they're mine. And they're charges that I give to you. I give a charge to you as your master. But also, too, what I want you to do is here. This again, the first letter lets you know in Hebrew that this is you. That first letter right there, here's the root right here, shamar. And shamar means not to keep, not to keep. You're not going to put it in your pocket. You're literally going to guard what I said. You're going to guard what I said with everything. You're going to guard it with your eyes. You're going to guard it with your nose. You're going to guard it with your tongue. You're going to guard it with your ears. You're going to guard it with your hands. You're going to guard it with your feet. You're going to guard it with your mind. You're going to guard it with your appetite. You're going to guard it with every part of your being, because I have assigned you and given you this duty and responsibility. But again, the question is whether or not you want to do it. That's why I give you the aim, because it's always going to be an if. And as we continue to go through this study, you're going to find out if you do certain things, then certain things are going to happen. If you don't do certain things, then other things are going to happen. And this is never going to change. That's why he begins to study off with the if. Okay. So I need you to tishmeru. I need you to guard. And not only am I looking for you to guard and walk in it, but also too, I'm looking for you to do. They got this word right here. This is and. There's another and. That's a wa. And right there. 3-letter root right here. Excuse me. This right here means to do. It's called a sa. Those of you in my Hebrew class, you know that some letters fall off because it's a weak verb. And then the tem right here on the end means them, meaning what I just mentioned, which are my kukothai and my mitzvothai. You have a choice, okay? I want you to guard, but also not only guard what I said, but I need you to put some action behind it. That's why it's a verb, because I'm looking for an action. And I'm looking for it to be done. Do you understand? That is perfect. An action that is performed, that is finished. Okay? Needs to be done perfectly. Otham. Otham is the direct object marker pointing directly to what I'm talking about, which is this and those is the kukothai and the mitzvothai. So that's verse number 3. Okay. These are the words of a living Elohim. Did I not mention to you that he's the king of the universe? Your master is the king of the universe, which no one can approach him. No one can come before him without having to deal with him. Okay. So this is what we've been given. This is the call. This is the duty and the responsibility that he has given to every Israelite, and also to the foreigner who decides that they want to live under these conditions. Because there are some people who would join forces with Israel and they find out that the life is a little too hard for me. Life is a little too hard. So, let's see if that's true. Let's see if that's true. You find that in the book of Numbers. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I'm in chapter number 11. I think, okay, so here it is in chapter number 11. Here, yeah, it's perfect. Chapter number 11 of Numbers, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, this is what they said. Check it out. The people began complaining about their hardships to Yahweh. And when Yahweh heard it, his anger flared up. So the fire from Yahweh broke out against them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. Yah decided, I'm going to set the camp on fire. I'm burning them up. I'm burning their tents up. And I'm burning all their stuff up. That's how mad they made Yah. Then the people cried to Moshe. Moshe prayed to Yahweh, and the fire abated. Good thing Moshe was there. The place was called Tavera, burning, because Yahweh's fire broke out against them. Do you think this is written for them and their sake, or do you think this is written for us to understand what the history is of the people that you and I belong to? Yah's given us some clues. Often we like to complain about things that we're going through and the hardships and how difficult things are for us, when we don't understand that these things are not arbitrary things that are happening to us. These are no accidents. Everything that's happening in our life is for a purpose. You know, I got someone over here doing construction. It's supposed to be 3 weeks and it's almost 4 months. And I said to myself, why? Had a little complaining in me like, man, if I would have just spent some extra money, this wouldn't have gone on, whatever. But I found out that Yah's using this person, not only for himself, but for me, to help me develop my character and to be the person that I need to be, and to be more like Yah. And I'm just tell you something, to be more like him, we're going to have to experience some hardships and some difficulties in our life. And it's how we respond to those difficulties that determines whether or not you and I are growing and developing and flourishing into what Yah's intention is for us. Okay. So in this place, it was called Tavera, and it's mentioned several different times all throughout the Tanakh, where it talks about Yah reminding us that these people was always complaining. Okay. Because they didn't like their life. And listen, verse number 4 tells it all. Next, the mixed crowd that was with them grew greedy for an easier life. They didn't want to go through and be with Israel. So all you foreigners and you strangers, and no offense, I'm not trying to be, I'm not being racist or nothing. Listen to me carefully. If you're going to be with Israel, just understand that our lives are going to be difficult and are going to be forced with decisions, and it's going to be forced with tests and trials to find out what we're made of. And if you want to join forces, you're going to have to understand that it's not going to be an easy life, not for you. While the people of Israel, for their part, also renewed their weeping and said, only if we had meat to eat. Kind of like, some of us are trying to move on to the vegan side. And no offense, but I pretty much like to have some, lamb once in a while, some type of meat. Okay. So they begin to complain. They begin to talk about, they remembered, the fish that they used to eat. They remembered, it said it cost them nothing, but they were so dumb, they didn't understand. It cost them literally everything to be there. It cost them their souls and who they were and how they were as a people and how they dealt with each other. They didn't understand that fish that they were so in the onions and the garlics and the cucumbers and everything else that they had that they thought was free was a cost to destroy them and for them not to be with their Elohim. And that's what it was. I want to share that with us because often we forget, that being with Yah is going to be different. It's going to be a whole different party. It's not going to be an easy life. It's going to be a life that's full of what they would call teleku, to walk with Yahweh. Yeah, I didn't promise an easy walk. He said that he took food away from people in order to test them, to find out whether or not they would keep his laws, his statutes, and commandments, to bring out the best in them. You understand? So these are the things that Yahweh is doing to his people. Okay. So back into Leviticus, we look at, again, understand that there's a separation that you and I are going through. Okay. Then Yah says this. Listen what he says in verse number 4. He says, when Nathati, the Gishmekim, the Baitam, the Natana, the Halresid, Uvaela, the Waits, the Hasadeh, right? The Hasadeh, the Yitena Peru. What did I just say? I said that Yah said, then, it's only then, okay, I will give, okay? And we see here that is spoken in a perfect tense. Yah already knows if you and I are going to do something. He says that I will give. I'm going to give you what? I'm going to give you the showers, not just rain. I'm going to give you the showers in its season. So from the studies that you've been doing with me, How many rain seasons did Yah say I'm going to give you? And what's the names of them?
The latter rain, the former rain.
Yes. So we got the latter and we got the former. Okay. Right. So the latter is the late, right? And the former, what is the early? Okay. So in our mind, we would think that the latter means the one at the end, which is true. But our latter rain comes in what time? Anybody know?
Oh,
The latter rain comes in the springtime.
I'm just backward. Okay.
Yes, is yes. See how they got us thinking it's some other time. And the former is going to be in the fall, late fall. You understand? So he'll give these two big douses. Okay. And he also tells Israel that the land I'm sending you to, it soaks up water. It's not like the water, like where you guys were when you were in Egypt, where you had to go collect water, bring it, and then have a little vegetable garden. You guys had your own little spot. What I'm talking about is a place that is full of water, okay? Because that's what it needs. But I have to give it to you in your season. So what is Yah telling us? He's telling us that there's a season for everything, okay? When I say that, what do you think about when I talk about for every time there's a time and a season? What pops in your mind? What do you think about?
Moedim.
Yes, thank you. And the Moedims are directly connected to what? Like you just said, Yared, it's directly connected to the seasons. So this and that, our seasons actually create our community, right? It gives us a sense of culture. It gives us our customs. And that's what the Moedims are. And that's what the Kokim are. So when Yah tells you, if you do my Kukim, okay, Bakuto Kai or Bakuto, I'm saying it wrong. Bakukothai, okay? Our Torah portion is Bakukothai, but you can pronunciate it in different ways. You can say Kukothai, Kukim, all different types of ways that you can conjugate it, okay? But it still has the same root, which is a koch, and a koch is a statute, but it's also too, I forgot to mention that it's a custom, okay? So when we get to our customs, okay, and we get to living a certain way, we begin to understand how we are supposed to live and what we're supposed to look like and what we're supposed to dress like, what we're supposed to eat and how we're supposed to talk and how we're supposed to reason and how we're supposed to judge and how all these different things, okay? Those are our customs. That's who we are as Israel. That's who we are. So we don't get our identity just from us saying things. We get our identity by the way that we live our lives. It's hard as H to the double E hockey stick to go around and talk to people about a life of Torah when you and I are living like everybody else in the world. When they can't see no differences and distinctions between what you're talking about and what they're going through. You have to show a person like, listen, I don't need to continue to tell you nothing. You need to be able to look at someone's life and be able to tell whether or not they're walking in the Torah. People say, here it is. My brother came to visit me out of nowhere just a few minutes ago. And before he came in the house, he was about to come and say bye. Guess what the uncle told him? The uncle who's been here for almost 4 months, guess what he told my brother before my brother just went through the door? Guess what he told him? Be careful. He might be meditating. Right? I'm wondering why this guy's here. He gave witness to the fact, he says, be careful. He might be meditating. So where did that come from? That came from every day that he's here. He's been seeing me reading the Torah, studying the Torah, practicing my Hebrew, eating right, doing whatever I got to do. I got my tzitzits on, everything. I'm fresh. I got my hair, you know what I mean? In any kind of, and I've been treating him with fairness and I've been treating him with love and concern. Okay. He hasn't seen some other person that, he remembers. So he's actually being taught by my life right now. It's a great witness. I say that because I think all of us want to be a great witness. Okay. When we also talk about this time that Yah says, and he says there's a time, there's a season, what we understand from the book of Ecclesiastes, called the book of Koleth, in chapter number 3, there is something that Yah describes to us through this king who had everything that he wanted in life. What he found to understand is that for everything, there is a season. There's a season. And with Yisrael as Yah's people, our seasons, listen to me carefully, have been defined and have been put in stone for the people of Elohim. That's you and I. But everything, there's a season, okay? There's a right time for every intention under the Shamayim, everything that you and I understand. There's a time to be born. There's a time to die. There's a time to plant. We've been talking about the land, and we've been talking about if we would do what we need to do, there's going to be a time to plant, and there's also going to be a time to uproot that which was planted. There's a season and a purpose and a great intention. Intention is, what's the purpose? What's the purpose? What's the intention? You know? So there's times and seasons in our life. And he says, listen, there's a time to kill. Yes, there is. And there's a time to heal. There's a time to tear down. And there's a time to build. There's times. You're going to have times in your life where you're going to weep about some things. And there's other times you're going to laugh. But there's a time for each one of those times. And we got to know when that season is. You got to be aware about what's going on. And what Yah's Moedim does, what his appointments do, is they bring things to our attention. Yah is constantly reminding us about what he's done. So when Yared said Pesach, what comes to your mind when you think about Pesach?
How the Israelites were spared by the blood being on the doorpost.
They were spared, and they were spared, and because Yah had killed the firstborn, but they were also spared. When I think about Pesach, I think about a deliverance from death. I think about where they were. I think about Mitzrayim. I think about their slavery. I think about all those things. And that's a reminder. Pesach is nothing but an appointment to be reminded of what Yah has done. There's different times of Yah and seasons and Moedim where Yahweh says, I need to remind you, because our people are very forgetful. They forget what Yahweh has done for them. We found that throughout the Psalms this whole week. Israel is always forgetting about what Yah has done. That's why he has David had assigned the Leviim to always come up with these songs and these poems and these teachings and these skills in order to give us instructions, so you and I would always have something to reference and to look at. It wasn't written just for their benefit. It was written for the benefit of the whole entire house of Israel, every Israelite that was born before and those who are coming after. You're going to have time of mourning and time of dancing. You have time to throw stones and time to gather. Sometimes you and I got to throw certain things away. And sometimes you and I have to gather certain things. But you can't do both of them at the same time. There's times, okay, like there's a time for Shabbat. Things are isolated. Yah has specific times, and there's seasons, and there's meaning time. There's a space and time where you and I are supposed to do certain things. There's also a time to embrace, but there's also a time to refrain from embracing. You got to know what time it is. You know, we use that term. I use it a lot. Do you understand what time it is? The time that you and I are living in right now, it's a different time. But it's a necessary time because there is an intention for it. And that's what Yah's trying to get us to understand. You can read this later on. Go back through it and look at it. You know, one of the things also too, he says there's a time to love and there's a time to hate. Time of war and a time of peace. So you go be in some different time. And you got to know what is the intention behind it. You understand? So this is what Yah is trying to get us to understand, is through the Kukim that you and I are able to get a better understanding and understanding about what Yahweh's intention and his purpose is. Yahweh's purpose is to gather that which has been separated. Okay? And he builds walls around us in order to protect us, like a shepherd would do sheep. He doesn't leave them just out in the open, folks, all by themselves to do what they want to do. He has to lead and he has to guide them and he has to gather them to the places that he's taken them. He has to protect them. That's what we are. We're Yahweh's sheep. Okay. So I've had enough of the Hebrew, but now we're just going to speed into the just a few moments into the English. Okay. So we left off where he says that if I will provide the rain, okay, and in its season, the land will yield its produce, okay, and the trees in the field will yield their fruit, all contingent upon if you and I would do this. If we would live by my regulations, teleku, walk and observe, meaning guard my commandments and obey them. And that means to do them. You got to do what he's asking you to do. Okay. Then he also attaches the obedience and and this guarding of it and the doing of it and the walking and living in it to the whether or not they would have good threshing time. Okay. So if they did what he said, because it's always an if, okay, then he says your threshing time will extend to the grape harvest and your grape harvest will extend. I mean, it would overtake. The Hebrew word that they say is overreach. So you wouldn't have enough time while you're harvesting grapes, right? And the season for you to sow, you'll still be gathering grapes. Our baskets were so full, and this is why he's hard on us. Our baskets would be so full if we would do what he says, that you wouldn't worry about whether or not you're going to leave any behind. You'd be so tired. You'd be so tired. And where he said a laboring man's sleep is sweet, you'd be so tired from working at the blessing that you wouldn't know what to do with yourself. You'd be exhausted. You wouldn't have any time to go worship another God because you'd be out in the field all day gathering with joy. Not picking cotton and being whipped and beat because you didn't bring enough in. That's a whole nother story we'll get on later on this week about how Yah uses labor and intense labor to change your mind. Okay? So he's saying, if you would do what I say, by the time you be ready for sowing, you still be gathering. And then you will eat as much food as you want. Okay? Meaning you would be satisfied. Okay. You'd be satisfied. You wouldn't have to go and ask anybody for nothing. Okay. And you would live securely in your land. That's what it is. And that's going to be the opening for today. That's something for us to think about. I'm going to read one more line. Yes, I'm going to read one more line. So do you guys understand that food security is connected to obedience by living, obeying, observing, and doing what he said? Okay. And you in your stomach. A lot of us don't believe that this right here about this eating as much as you want. We take it for granted. But I guarantee people that are living in other parts of the world who don't have our Elohim, who starve and experience famine, you can see now why they want to join themselves to Israel, because you get to eat as much food as you want. And you get to live in a place that is full of peace and security. So we're not just talking about security from only your enemies. We're talking about food security. And that's one of the biggest problems that we're having today in this country is food security. When Yah says that I'm going to deliver you from the places where you will never experience famine again, you think he's just saying that to us? He's saying it to everybody that Israel's been scattered all over the four corners of the world. Right now, some of our brothers and sisters are starving. So when we run around bragging, talking about how blessed we are, you need to remember that your brothers and sisters are starving. There ain't nothing to celebrate. They're starving from famine. What can you and I do about it? Absolutely nothing. Because Yah chose that for them. Like I told you, he chooses the poor for this. He chooses the famine for them. He chooses this for that. Yah chooses whatever. He chose Job. He was an upright man. He eschewed evil. He didn't have nothing to do with nothing. He set his eyes. He wouldn't even look at young women anymore. That's how tough he was with his walk with the Holy One of Israel. But even in spite of all the good that he did, Yah said, I got to put him to the test. No matter how much I blessed him, I'm going to take everything he has away from him. I'm going to go ahead, kill his kids. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead, touch his body. Go ahead. You want permission? Do it. Because I know the ultimate goal is to get him to curse me to my face. The greatest way that anybody can curse Elohim to his face, when he says, I'm going to pay my enemies to their face, cursing Yahweh to his face means that you have counted what he said as it's nothing, it's insignificant, and it's worthless about his words. If you want Yah to take you serious, you and I are going to have to take him serious. And we have to take him at his word. You hear me? We will have to make the decision and make the decision and have the mindset that says, you know what? I don't really, excuse my French, I don't give a damn about what nobody else is talking about. Literally, I don't care. You know why? Because they're not saying what he said. You shouldn't care what nobody else is talking about. Because the only person who's ever spoken to us was Yahweh through Moshe. We had no other Elohim, we had no other God, we had no one else, no other messengers. And if they didn't speak a word in his name that came to pass, he said, you should not listen to them. There you go. So if you want to hold on to Yeshua and he's a prophet, what did he say? Did anything that ever he said, did it ever come to pass? Well, it's kind of ironic that, yeah, he did mention that Jerusalem, all the stones are going to be torn down. Well, that wasn't written until after the stones were torn down. The New Testament wrote about Israel, about Jerusalem being destroyed in 70 AD, right? They wrote about that not in 70 AD and not before 70 AD. The New Testament came in the 80s and the 100s. Do your research, you can find it out. You understand? You shouldn't care about what nobody else is saying. We should care only about what he's saying, because ultimately it's about how much food you and I are going to eat and how secure you and I are going to be in his land. Well, you would ask the question, well, what does this mean to me? Why are you talking to me about if I would do this, then it would be in the land? I'm not in the land. So how is this important to me? Well, it's important to us because these are the things that you're going to find out that our ancestors abandoned. We're going to find out later on this week about how much they hated and loathed and despised the creator of the heavens and the earth. That's what you're going to find later on this week. As you continue to read your Torah portion, you're going to find out that these people despised the creator. This is the reason why he said, if, because Yah knows, and I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that people actually hate him. I didn't realize that they don't have no regard for nothing that he's ever said. Nothing. They don't care about being delivered from Mizraim. They don't care that they were slaves. They don't care that they're slaves now. They don't care. They do not give it two inklings of a thought, okay, to say that, you know what? You know, our people have been through some things, and there has to be a reason, and there has to be an intention. Yes, Sharet.
I just wanted to say I came to the realization that they hate us, and one of the reasons that I say they hate us, and I see that they hate us, is whenever you wear the locks on your head.
Yeah.
When they see that, they just passed a crown, the Crown Act, but now I understand why they didn't want blacks wearing those locks, because it reminded them of what it was that they're supposed to be doing.
Wow, that's powerful. You know, I don't know if you can see mine, but I've been letting my hair grow and I'm loving it, right? And unfortunately, my daughter's boyfriend, he's trying to let his hair grow out. And then he came over the other day and I said, oh, you letting your hair grow out? I said, that's cool, man. That's, you know, that's our culture. That's who we are. And the first thing he said is, oh, I'm cutting it off. I said, why? He said, well, because I'm trying to be presentable, because you know, I want people to be able to, you know, buy my stuff, my products and stuff that I'm selling. I want to look a certain way. I said, well, I did that for over, 30 years and they never appreciated me. You know what I'm saying? I had on Dockers and a button up shirt and everything. They never appreciated my culture. And I asked them, I said, if you had $1 million, would you be thinking that way? And the first thing is, oh no, I would be good. So I said, so you're willing to, it's like you're kind of selling yourself out. And he got, a little offended by it. But I mentioned that to say that there's an identity crisis with our people. We're ashamed of who we are and not what we are, but who we are. When I brought this information to a lot of people, they were like, I'm not a slave. I got people in my family right now because they got Cherokee Indian in their blood. They think I'm not a slave. That's them. Then I asked the question, if the reparations were paid, well, you'll be the first in line. They take the reparations, but they won't take their heritage and their inheritance and their culture. I'm not ashamed of who I am, and neither should you be. These Moedims, this Bakukothai, y'all saying, if you're in what I'm saying, if you're into what I'm saying, then these are the things that you're going to do. And as a result of it, I'm going to go ahead and provide for you. They call it a blessing. Yah says, I will give. That's different. Yes, Akoti Pam. I can't hear you.
Those same people believe that America is their country.
Oh, yeah. This is our home. This is the greatest country on the face of this earth, and we're part of it. What do y'all say in Exodus, Ezekiel 20? He says, what you said when you had in mind that we're going to be like the other nations, surely will not happen. So Yah's coming to separate. And that's what he's doing right now. Reading this week in Psalms, I found out that Dawid was crying out to Yah. He said, you delivered the people of Israel when they were crying out from their distress. Crying out is part of the prerequisite. Yes, Akoti.
I was noticing that, we're connected to the moon and the stars and the seasons. And I noticed that, I don't know, the weather and the seasons have been changing. It's kind of like when more Israel wakes up, it's like the world is starting to change.
Wow,
yeah,
that's deep.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that is awesome. That's very powerful. Listen, you know how to say things are aligned with the stars? Israel is literally aligned with the stars. Okay. I'm going to share something with you guys since I mentioned it, and I hope you don't mind. You guys are my class, and I'm not going to be embarrassed by it, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share something with you. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you see?
Remember me.
All right. So listen, I wrote this poem for my father-in-law before the moment he passed. I was sitting in the living room. This poem took me like 10 minutes. Okay. I was just inspired. I want to read it to you. And I want you to understand what this life is about. I wrote it. Okay. This is what it says. The name of it is called Remember Me. It says, many days have I lived, some of great happiness and others of deep sorrow. Many days I have laughed and others I have cried with a grievous heart, filled with memories of the good old days. Most of my days I enjoyed the work of my hands, my home, my garden, my roses, and what I would plant in the next season. Sometimes I would just imagine being a star, ever shining and abiding in the heavens forever. Today, my days have come to an end. No more will I have sad days, bad days, or even abiding under the heavens. Today, I will no longer plant my vegetables, my roses, or even contemplate which to use for my evening meal. I want all those who all those who love me to remember me. Remember my days, whether good or not so good. for they were mine. Remember my wife, my children, my grandchildren, for they were the blessings that were given to me. Remember my work in the earth, my joys and my toil, for they are those in which I leave behind. My star is shining. You may not know this, but it will never die. It's no longer being seen with its vibrancy. It may not be as glowing as the days there on earth, but look up in the heavens and you'll see me. You'll see me, I promise. I know it's going to be a little hard because you can't tell which one I am, for there are many. Never forget to remember. Never forget my life, for I have been made a promise by the Father in heaven. He will never forget his promises that he made to my fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the heavens. Believe and remember, I am a son of the Most High. He always keeps his promises, and so have I. Praise be to the Holy One of Israel. When I wrote that poem, I really fully didn't recognize what I know about it today. Our lives are directly connected to the stars. Yah says, if a person can count the stars of the heavens, I will no longer consider the children of Israel my people. I will get rid of, they won't be my people no more. Yah has connected his relationship to us with all the lights that are in the heavens. If they're connected to the lights and what they call the Shamayim, which are the Ma'or, the Gadol Ma'or, which is the Shemesh, is the sun, and the moon, the Yereach, and then the Kokovim, which is the stars. As you mentioned, Yared, as you mentioned, Akoti, Rivkwa, we're connected with these seasons which are dictated by that which is in the heavens. They're the witnesses to our existence and who we are. As long as there's a sun shining, as long as the moon is rising, as long as the stars are shining, you and I should know that Yah has kept his promise. He's going to give us our deliverance. He will rescue his people. And guess what? Those lights and those seasons dictate. Thank you. They dictate our existence, but they dictate the Moedims, which have are connected to the Bakutothai. They're Yahweh's. They're Yahweh's decrees. You see? So those things are always continuing. Stars are in existence and they do have a lifetime, and then they come out and then some of them die. But you don't know which ones dies because they're always one shining. Where there's death of one, there's a birth of another. Do you understand? So you and I should not be worried about whether or not you have eternal life because our Elohim is eternal. And you and I have been called the eternal people. And with that, I say to you, Shalom.
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 Yeah. Who said that? Yes, our lives will be easier when we get to the land. Yes. Thank you so much.
Praise Yah.
I'm glad I shared that with you guys. Any questions, any concerns, contributions? Questions, statements?
Nice poem.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Fanta. I'm actually going to make sure that when I pass away that they read it and just take out some different things if I don't have any grandkids or whatever, but whatever. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll see you guys on Yom Kamishi. And until then, I say shalom to you. Lila Tov.
Lila Tov.